Hello and welcome to the first lesson of the first course of TABE language. This is a lesson that goes with the score boost TABE text. This is level E. When you went through your intake process, you should have been given a paper copy of this book. Definitely have it with you open as we go through this lesson because I'm going to be using the same pages and the same content that are in the book. If you don't have a paper copy of this book, first of all, you can get one from wherever you did your intake, if that's Union County or Bradley County or elsewhere. But also, if you don't have it in the meantime, here in the Canvas class, if you navigate over to the Files section on the left side of the screen, click on Files, and then navigate down to the folder that says, I think it's TABE Language E Pages, and you'll see scans of all the particular lessons that we'll be working on throughout this series. So make sure you have this book, either a paper copy or a digital copy that you've just opened on Canvas as we go through this. We're going to be starting actually with lesson 1 that begins on page 4. You know, these are actually called strategies instead of lessons, but I kind of think of them as individual lessons. So how this works is I will go through the instructional part of the content. So you see it pulled up here on my screen right now. Each of these lessons has a page or two and sometimes more that explains the concepts. So I'll be working through those. Each video might take 15, 20, 25 minutes to work through the material. But then there will be a second video that covers the work that you'll do with the lesson. So with each of the lessons, there's some practice work that goes along with it. And I'll also record a video where I go over the answers to those questions. You know, even if you have the answers in the book, and you do, you need a little bit of explanation about how to arrive at the answers so that when you take the TABE test or the GED later on, that you'll have a good sense of how to approach these questions. Okay, so we'll just get started here with the first strategy or lesson. And this is on parts of speech. This is a pretty basic foundational skill for grammar or language. But don't feel badly if you don't remember all of this information. You know, it's been a long time ago. A lot of this was introduced early on in elementary school when we were really young. And if you've been out of school for a long time, you may have forgotten some of this. The good news is that it usually comes back pretty quickly, like riding a bicycle, once you start working with it, even if you've been out of school for decades. We see it every day. Okay, let's get started with the lesson. So parts of speech, and it says here there are many different parts of speech. For example, there's nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. We're going to talk about what those are here in just a second. Those 5 are nowhere near a complete list of parts of speech. There are many others, but these 5 are going to be important for us to know before we go forward into looking at sentences, whether they're punctuated correctly, whether they're complete sentences at all in the first place. So knowing these 5 parts of speech will help us as we get started on that particular work. Part of speech in general, it means the particular function that a word or a group of words has in a sentence. And it says here each part has a different function. Almost think of parts of speech as jobs. You know, different words or phrases, that's groups of words, have different jobs within a sentence, and these parts of speech are ways of identifying what their job, role, or function is in a sentence. All right, I'll try not to move the mouse around too much, but I do use it as a pointer to point out what I'm talking about, so I'll try not to give you a headache or make you dizzy moving it around. But the first part of speech is the noun, which I'm sure you learned early on. But to remind you, the definition of a noun is a person, place, or thing. We have some examples of what those can look like here. We have child, sailor, both of which are examples of a person. We have the state of Maine, which is an example of a place. Just note that proper nouns, places that are named like Maine, El Dorado, Arkansas, United States of America, are capitalized, but they're considered nouns. We have a supermarket, which is another place, but not a proper noun, not somewhere that's named. If we had Brookshire's or Walmart, then we would consider it a proper noun. And then lastly, looks like we have cat and spoon. Both of these are things, although, we don't think of cats and dogs, animals that we have as pets, as things. A lot of times we consider them he or she, but I hate to tell you, in the world of grammar, we consider cats and dogs things, and we even use the pronoun it to refer to those animals. And I'll talk about pronouns here in just a second. So yeah, in our speech, certainly we refer to our animals as he or she, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just in the world of writing and grammar, we consider animals to not be gendered. Okay, our second part of speech is a pronoun. And if you understand what's going on with a noun, then you're most of the way here with the pronoun. Pronouns do the same work that nouns do. They can be the subject of a sentence. They can be the object of a verb phrase. Those are things we haven't talked about yet. But, the point is that pronouns are versatile. But pronouns, their difference than regular nouns is that they can take the place of a previous noun in the sentence. So let's say that I wanted to write a sentence about someone named John. If we lived in a world without pronouns, I would have to say something like, John woke up in the morning, John brushed his teeth, John brushed his hair, John walked out the door to go to work. And you can see the repetitiveness. But if I want to use pronouns, John got up in the morning, he brushed his teeth, he brushed his hair, and then he went out the door to go to work. So we can avoid a lot of repetition by using pronouns. We got some examples here, and kind of like I said a few minutes ago, this is nowhere near a complete list. But we've got some personal pronouns. I refers to me. Me, by the way, is another pronoun. He and she, we've got gender pronouns that could be the subject of a sentence. Them, a plural pronoun that refers to two or more people. It's a pronoun that refers to an object or something that we don't know the gender of. You, if we're addressing a person. I'm addressing you on camera right now. Of course, there are a lot of other pronouns. You might be thinking of him, her, they. Here in the South, you might even be thinking of y'all or you all. So there's a lot more pronouns that can be used in different sorts of grammar situations. But we've got some examples here, and these are the ones you'll be asked to recognize in the sentences that you'll practice here in just a few minutes. Okay? All right, our third part of speech is the verb. And kind of like the noun, you learn this pretty early, but a verb is an action word. It tells us about some action that a subject of a sentence is undertaking or is happening. It's not here in this definition, but verbs can express states of being, like I am a certain thing. The verb am is a state of being verb. It's actually a form of this verb is that appears in the example list. But verbs are action words in their most simple form. Walk, talk, sleep, eat, actions like that. Many of them are regular, like I walked, I talked, but some of them are irregular, as we'll see going forward. I grow, I grew. We don't say I grow. We say, or growed. We say I grew, an irregular verb. This classifies action words like go, learn, run, creep, wrote. Some of these are in past tense, stop or stopped. The verb is that I skipped over, like I said, is one of those state of being verbs. Most of the time we use these in helping verb situations or linking verb situations. Forming verb tenses or describing a subject by linking it up with an adjective. In other words, I am, that's a form of is, hungry, adjective. That's a good segue into adjective, the next part of speech. So adjective, as you probably learned at some point in the past, is a part of speech that describes a person, place, or thing. In other words, a noun or something that's doing the job of a noun. We have some examples here: hot, green, shy, beautiful, thirsty, hollow, lazy. You can, I'm sure, envision some of the nouns that might be described by these adjectives, like hot potato, green money, shy puppy, beautiful jewelry, thirsty cowboy, hollow log, and so on. So adjectives can describe nouns, and I think I said they can describe things that are working like nouns, pronouns, and some other parts of speech that we haven't covered and probably won't anytime soon. But adjectives describe nouns or anything that's working as a noun in a sentence. Adverbs are pretty similar. They describe a verb. Verbs are action words like walk, like talk. You can probably imagine the adverb slowly referring to maybe the pace that somebody or something moves. He walked slowly. In that case, slowly is describing how the person walked. And you also note that a lot of times we form these adverbs by taking an adjective like slow that could describe a noun like a slow turtle, and adding the ly suffix that turns it into an adverb that modifies it, describes a verb. Certainly there are irregular adverbs just like there are irregular verbs. We will, as we go forward in these lessons and in the book, we'll get to those. But for now, you're just going to be working with adverbs that end in ly and modify verb. And, if you remember a little bit of grammar, you might be thinking that adverbs can also modify or describe adjectives or other adverbs. That's true, but we're not at the point where we're going to talk much about that. Okay? Here in the example sentence, they gave you several examples of nouns, and nouns that are doing different things in the sentence. So Ellie drove to the mall. We have the proper noun Ellie. She is the subject of the sentence, the person who's doing the action of the verb driving. We have another noun, mall, that's telling us where Ellie drove. Another noun, friends, plural. We've got at least two, probably more of these. Well, actually, it's named 3 of her friends. So this is a common noun that's collecting together a group of people. And then lastly, lunch is also a noun. Things that are more like ideas. That lunch is an idea. A meal itself could be an object, but lunch is kind of an idea. It wasn't covered on the instructional page, but other nouns that we encounter are abstract, and they qualify as nouns too. Things like love, disappointment, honor, ethics. These are things that may not have physical existence that can be seen, but ideas or concepts are considered to be nouns too. And then the last thing that it tells us here on this page is that some nouns, and those are the proper nouns, need to be capitalized. And names of people, months, states, towns, and so on, also countries. And oftentimes on the TABE and GED, the way that is tested is you'll have 4 sentences, and you're asked to answer which one's written correctly or which one is written incorrectly, and you may have some proper noun capitalization mistakes to deal with. Okay, so this actually ends the instructional part of this lesson. So I'm about to close out this video here in a good almost 15 minutes in length. But you're not quite done yet, because what I'd like for you to do is, after this video ends, to go ahead and do this page of work in your workbook. It's page 5, and it goes with what I just said, or what I just talked about. Do your best. In number 1, it actually gives you the answer, but my challenge to you is to try it yourself before you look at the answer. The answers to all of these are in the back of the book, but please, this is your own education. Your goal is to learn, not to get all of these correct. So do this page on your own to the best of your ability. And then I'm going to say, don't even look at the answer key. Click on the second video that should be linked or should appear right after this one, and it's going to have a title that says Strategy 1 Answers. And so watch that after you've gone through the work, and you can check your own answers. But more importantly, get an explanation of how to get the answers. Okay? All right, that ends the first video. Good luck here on page 5, and I'll be right back with you after you've finished it in the second video. Thank you.